go by car, because otherwise be like, oh, this person is doing this additional practice, like being blind, but they're going by car back and forth. So one shouldn't do that.
Ninji Kiegi teaching, Ninji Kiegi meeting shop, and a condo to win, the condo the lady, and Tenje Samatana and Condo set to Buddhist. That DJ do said that Tenje Kadisam Dam, so near King in the new Kiegi, Eugene Kadiji to Kidara, Pajola, Sujola, and New King, and the Nusa, Nevichawa, the Rizella, Eugene Kadiji, so much stuff, and Eugene Deina. Kesi kyujin tadiji yinba yina digi tone ene kontrol ba kaya la ya samdanda kadindu basuje samdanda ba.
So then with regard to the opposing forces that keep one from generating compassion, so the opposing force that prevents the generating or the cultivating of compassion, that is anger. So here, in order to overcome this kind of anger, to relinquish, to overcome or eliminate anger, that is by way of reflecting upon dependent arising. It is through understanding dependent arising that one can overcome or one can weaken that type of anger, which is an opposing force to compassion. So when in the case of some kind of harm, one reflects upon the causes and conditions that give rise. So when things are from point of view of both sides. So here, who is the person who inflicts harm? What is the object of the harm? What is that which is being harmed? What is the activity of the harm? What is the harmful activity itself? So those aspects, one then reflects upon each of their causes and conditions. What are the different causes and conditions of the person inflicting harm, of that which is being harmed, the activity of harm, and so forth. So in that way, by reflecting upon all these aspects, one is able to eliminate, one is able to overcome the anger, which is an opposing factor or an opposing force to compassion. So in particular, if there's someone who is angry with, who has harmed oneself in the past, so the action has already passed, is no longer there, so the action has happened in the past, but one should reflect upon the act of harming. So what are the causes? What are the causes of the actual harm? What gave rise? What are the causes that give rise to the action of being harmed oneself? This is something one should contemplate, one should reflect on. One should sincerely, one should make an effort, really strongly reflect upon those. And in this case, it's better that oneself comes up with reasonings here. One should think up one's own reasons. That makes it more effective if one comes up with one's own reasons with regard to the causes and conditions, etc. So here, if one can't really come up with any kind of reasons, one should think it may be like that, it may be like this, it may be like this, it may be like that. So to think in this way, like this may be a reason, perhaps there may be a reason, etc. And in that way, if one thinks along, if one does this with regard to the previous harm, then when there's new harm, when one is being harmed again, one is able to avert, one will not right away react in a strong way because there's some kind of ascertainment as a result of the previous reflection. Otherwise, if one doesn't engage in those different kinds of reasons, one's previous practice will be like throwing water over some dirt. It will not really hold and will not really have an effect. So therefore it's important to strengthen one's practice in that way, that it has an effect if one is being harmed in the future. So this should suffice for today. So tomorrow we'll meet again at 1:30. As yesterday, 1:30 tomorrow.
Kazangi di jiwa dine esi yusishi cheda jangore cheda wazo ani zashijun jiwa res jiwa di ba jadi le lenge hega shi zhe cha des je zashijun da ne di chik da wa bu zhao yi go zashijun da kazama shi di zhe mi zhe go de lai ba 제보 인증을 써야 돼. 가도도 입라고치 제보 써야지 다. 이만 이내 영고 셈을 이부차네. 이루 써야지. 어디는 신다가 자치고 써야 되다. 유대치 부치 자치고 써야지 와. 어디지 당 여기만 이만 저 제제치. 나지 나 제제치다. 다 이제 다 나이가 시간다. 제제치 저 자치고 써야 돼. 디니디 계속 나가려고 쓰죠.
So this should clarify the question or his answers a little further. The question with regard to who's more precious, His Holiness or we. So actually the answer would be the same in the sense, well, he's already given the answer from the point of view in general, or basically there is no actual difference between His Holiness and us. But then from the point of view of from the point of view of, there's no. So from the point of view of just the temporarily, we talk about a difference of preciousness or more precious one. One being more important than the other. So here we talk about being more beautiful or being more attractive in the sense of physical attractiveness. So one's physical color, one's shape, etc. being more attractive or less attractive. And then from the point of view of being close to one's mind or less close with regard to one's own mind. Or from the point of view of like having certain qualities, possessing certain qualities, as opposed to just cherishing. From the point of view of cherishing something, considering something to be important just from the point of view of cherishing it. So those are, there are differences here with regard to considering someone to be precious or less precious, etc. So from the point of view of our mind, so when we talk about whoever there is, so with regard to the qualities, the good qualities of His Holiness, then all of us would consider His Holiness to be more precious with regard to His qualities, from the perspective of His qualities. However, from the point of view of cherishing one over the other, well, with a few exceptions, most people would cherish themselves more than they would cherish His Holiness. So with regard to the situation, like taking into consideration the possibility one gets scolded by His Holiness, getting rebuked by His Holiness, well, in that case, just watch your own mind. What's going to happen? When you get scolded by His Holiness, what is going to happen? Is there suddenly like a kind of distance, as like not cherishing His Holiness as much as before, but rather cherishing oneself more? So most people, in the case of most people, it would probably be that there's some kind of distance then. However, from the point of view of the qualities, even if His Holiness scolds oneself, even if He rebukes oneself, there will still be the same sense that the qualities, from the point of view of the qualities, His Holiness is more precious. So therefore, with regard to cherishing one over the other, that is changeable. But with regard to the qualities, or from the point of view of the qualities, considering His Holiness to be precious, that stays the same. So here, from the point of view of generating love and compassion, and then equalizing oneself for others, equalizing oneself with others. So here talking about one being more precious than the other, in this particular context, this is from the point of view of cherishing one over the other. It's not from the point of view, so regarding someone to be more precious from the point of view of cherishing one more than the other. It's from the point of view of that. It's not from the point of view of cherishing, considering someone to be more precious from the point of view of his or her qualities, or having greater qualities. So Geshe-la asked for another question. So, any question?
Yesterday.
Could you wait?
Geshe-la yesterday mentioned that. Yeah, it's okay. Geshe-la yesterday mentioned that we tend to perceive ourselves as the center, and it appears to me otherwise. It seems to me objectively it is otherwise, because I am the only one that can feel my body, and no one else can feel the pains or the pleasures of my body. Similarly with my mind, I am the only one that really experiences my mind, maybe the only one that will be responsible for bringing it to enlightenment. And I'm the only one that can take responsibility for my body. and for my mind. So naturally, I feel that I am in the center. And so.
먼저 키라도 먼저 대화도 지리스라 다니나요지 다바모네션을 소소 다 미션바도 배바도 자 소소 주도 소소 이보도 자기가 어디지 노트인데 자네 대답지 이니가 돌아 코란지 삼발라 그랬으나 디버니시나 찍고야 되고 싶으면 지여바 참도 마시 찍고야 시리 인생 가르스나 소소소소 유기 좋아 소소하고 그러마도 미신기 배동에다 갈 나자라서 가지고 하고 말해 이 셈기 참이요 소소 저와 가리면 상도 가리면 소소하고 그러마도 셴프지 하고 말해 야 소소 길기 참에 개인 계고야 소소 개고 그래서 칼라사라서 아니 상계공한 토야기 제비가 소소 개인 계고 그래서 미신메기 제비까지 개인 계고야 말해 인생 뒤에는 소소 대화도 잘 말해 소소 찍고야 더 잘 말해
제가 소소 대화 잘 말해 대화 찍고래 나연이 이제 가봐라 대화 이만 있으면 소소 대화 차나면 같이 대화 차나 디 대화 인스 디 대화만 디 대화 인스는 디 왜니서 팀입니다 대화 이만 인스에 되다 다 대화 찍고 먹을 때 그거는 가갈 됐어
So here Krishna says there is a difference between saying
something is the center
and something is not the center. There is a difference between those two. So with regard to I'm the center, this person is not the center. Or this person is the center, I'm not the center. That is different as opposed to saying I should regard myself as being the center. So being the center, or being the middle of everything, or being most important, that is one is different to saying I regard myself, I consider myself to be more important, or I consider myself to be the center. There's a difference.
다 대화 이만인데 저버시 두 말와 아니 십조 디인디 조 이만인 저버디 유기토는 제도 말해 레디 이내 러러스스 다 가다 신기제 메워지 심지 수인의 러러스스 계속 찍고래 계속 뒤집에 다 뒤봐 계속 해당지 용적으로
맞아요.
자 지금 요 말에 이내 러러스스 계속 찍고래 뒤섬로지 용적으로 다 등록하는 저 뒤집에
So from the point of view of one being the center or not being the center, or one being more important or one being the most important or not, well, we cannot actually differentiate. We cannot distinguish between that just from the point of view of from the side of the object. It's neither. We cannot say that one is more important from the side of the object itself. We cannot say that one person is important and not important. Now, with regard to considering someone to be important or not important, here the question would be, do we have to consider ourselves to be more important? Do we have to regard ourselves to be the center? Is that your question? Whether we should regard ourselves. So the first part is clear. It's actually impossible to say that the object in and of itself is actually more important. So are you talking about we should consider ourselves to be more important? We should regard ourselves as being the center.
Yes, in the sense that I have more responsibility. I have responsibility for myself.
맞아요. 소수 기획해 보였죠.
다 디제도 전에 디가 아니 야 디레 양세 야 체체버서 다 수수수지 지고고도 스괴배왕 기계지 다 지외버 이마이 경쟁들라 지외 뭐에기 경쟁들라 아니 수수디 하고고도 미신다 하고 미두스라나 디에 경쟁다도 조금도 지고고도 레들야 경쟁대스 조그래 수수디 하고고도와 신나다 하고 오면도 제가 디다는 지고고도 레들대스 경쟁 조시 지 외에 기지 시험에는 디다다 조금도 이제 가르레스나 디 소소도 임바 차샤 디디이나 니기 빙자 임비 경쟁기 콜라는 자치웠지 수수의 자임비 경쟁기 콜라 막아왔지 군진이가 기도에 마셔봐 찍어봐 좋아 근데 다버도 신기래 들리네 제거 그게 그 동네 용기요 신기래 등에 제거 sim tingdile dindichi toa dile di zi yuebi dindzena hago mogo se keje di tadari imida.
Not at all. So now we need to differentiate with regard to having to regard ourselves as being the center. Here it's different saying we have to regard ourselves as being the center and it being appropriate. It being appropriate to consider oneself to be the essence or to be the center of everything. So from the point of view of we need to consider ourselves to be the center, well, from the perspective of not knowing other people's problems, not understanding their situation, well, then it would make sense, not being really aware of how they feel, what they go through, etc. But whether this is appropriate or not is a totally different matter. That is different. So with regard to oneself, taking for instance oneself, so one's own relatives one considers to be more important. So they seem to be more of being a center or being more important to oneself. Whereas with regard to one's enemy, one considers to be those to be less important. But actually they're all the same in experiencing problems. And actually knowing that they experience problems, we add to their problems. We are responsible for harming them in the sense that we give them even more problems. So in that sense, it's not appropriate actually to consider ourselves to be in the center, to be more important. It's not appropriate.
Da rana sushi tungi di rana sushi sirwa res. Sihe dila junju da dujo nalo ina dila ida. Indi ina labi tungi labi sewa res. Kangwe tungi kangwa kurang sewa res. Chigi chigi kagara punjini. Sushi kange di sushi sirwa res.
With regard to eliminating one's own sufferings, with regard to eliminating one's own problems, etc., well, it is explained in Shantideva's, Bodhisattva way of life. It is explained that with regard to one's own problems, actually the problems of the hand should remove. And the problems of the legs, if one has a problem or pain in one's leg, it's the leg's responsibility. Because oneself and one's arm and oneself and one's leg are different. So it's therefore really the responsibility of that which experiences the problem.
Da dide chojini tuku yomaro da di labe dungi labo parangi ta kambe rogo che wore kambal tichiri labe rogo che na mato tuku yomaro wasila na da dina shinchi simji suda suyi na rana suji kamne di rana suji se tuku yona manju tsanga jabo ikini merita roa pa uzu itani pa judo jebo eke yomaro ine se tuku meba chik sushi rogo che na kui se tuku yoba dindi yoba ina ta nipo du se kuya chagdo.
Now, with respect to look at it from one perspective, so actually with regard to one's legs, of course, it's sometimes not possible that the legs can remove the suffering. So they need assistance. Likewise, with regard to one's hand, it's like unless the person makes an effort for the leg to remove or the arm to remove the suffering, of course, they themselves are not able to. So similarly here, with regard to other sentient beings, here similarly, in the sense that if other sentient beings can remove their sufferings, okay. If they can actually remove their problems and their difficulties on their own, then there's no need for us to get involved. There's no need for us to crowd in and try to help them and kind of to insist on helping them. But if they're unable to remove their problems, they're unable to help themselves, well then we need to take responsibility.
Da tanda wansu lo sumju shibju subu tangtang che banjiro ozi yena keze di she di tate godo khurang kange khurang se dugure mara kange mara se diris ine nedang di kadu ine dinde marwa suzu pugu chinju ke cha che ka le ina ta aman da phamai ki ta mi shin la gi robo tenjur ma to suzu kyaba suzu chi shing ma re ta te zarbo jas chi shing ma re ti wa shi lo pu chinju ji ti che ba ine nguye ma to ke shing ma ro ta chi bu shin de ten go ro 내가 그제 차대다. 다 디카드들에 아니 말한 강에 말았으기 아마처럼 제목을 남나다요. 어스라. 디라케 요마라. 타마 다게 뭐 차들에 내나서 두작이 나들에 타지도 현의 때마다 수수 때 제투게 요마래. 다 수수 등이 수수 강에 수수와 계제디 용사입니다. 진짜 수수 강에 제디 다 현의 때고 마템바를 내다 관한 된지 디나 다 신강에 지리 야 소소를 때마디 땡구가 되디 걸라버다디 외부 차고하다 그게 수수강에 지리 신 땡고를 신기 수수를 좀 제가 외바는 신 아니 신강에 지리 수수를 땡고에 지리서라 파로 제가 외부 차고하다.
So right now, if we're around 30 or 40 years old, so right now we may be healthy. We may have enough financial security, so we may feel, okay, so I need to look after my own problems and another person needs to look after their own problems, after their own difficulties. So, but the point is that this is not always the case. It's not always that, so it's not always that we can look after our own problems or other people are in the situation that they can look after their own problems. If you think about like a small child, for example, a very small child, they need someone else to remove their shit. And then I was like, oh, now I start talking in kind of a rough way. But anyway, it's true, he says, so we need someone to clean us up, for example. So the only thing a small child can do is cry upon, pooing and so forth. So in that situation, one depends on the help of one's parents. In that situation, one depends on the help of other people. Of course, if one reaches the age when one says to one's mother, okay, so from now on you no longer have to help me, that is a different situation. Once one feels one does no longer need help. But as long as one needs help, then there are other people who do assist one. Likewise, when one gets older, one definitely needs the help of other people. One is older, one is more fragile, one gets sick. So at that time, again, one needs the assistance of others. So if that is the case, then when one is not experiencing those problems, one needs to depend, when one experiences different types of problems, one needs to depend on the help of others. It is necessary to receive help from others. So likewise, here we can say that if others need our help, we need to help them. We have responsibility to help them. It is appropriate to benefit them and help them. Because it's the same, like sometimes we need the help of others and then others will be there for us. So likewise, the other way around, when others need assistance, we should be there for them and help them with their difficulties.
아니 란체벌 진해디 다수수기 긴수수 킨디 제디 아니 랑신 코나디레스 시베 코라 랑신 디데 김젠크에체 아니 제베지에지다 디규주다 이게 요마레스 그래서나 아니 신동 코라나 뇌디 세레기 신동 코라기 지거레스 요를 담아도 지나 지르다게 신경에 디르다기도 디르 빼디르 그에체 디르다기도 제사 아니
So some people may respond by saying that the fact that one cherishes oneself, the self-cherishing attitude is natural. It's a natural response of our own consciousness, our own awareness that we cherish ourselves. So some people say that this cannot be changed. So by analyzing, by examining, through analysis, through examination, it's impossible to change that natural tendency of the mind. It is similar, they say, for instance, like a tree. If there's something that harms the tree would naturally try to avert the harm that is inflicted on the tree. So Geshe-la says, I don't really know that, but this is what they say. It's hard for us to prove that or us to know that, but he says this is what some people claim that in nature, so trees and so forth, they would try to avert any kind of harm. So this is an example for this case, a case in which it is natural for us to cherish ourselves. So Holiness talked about this before when he spoke about these flowers that have thorns, and that these thorns are there to prick us. And then this is like a way for the flower to protect itself. These thorns, they protect the flower, so it's a natural kind of mechanism of the flower to protect itself. That's it. His Holiness said that these kind of thorns go out and they prick others. So saying that the flower protects itself, that was Geshe-la's interpretation. His Holiness only spoke about these thorns kind of coming out and pricking others.
아니 신기 자와도 추가의 예산 교토부터 내가 제가 되어서 그렇지. 신기 자와.
So likewise, the roots of the tree, they naturally look for water. So they move in the earth, they move around until they find a source of water. So that's similar.
但第背头呢，其实写话，用真的给民多，但背个不什么的，背写的样，爬个呢，出个呢，高个这些多，但背现在个吧，因呢。行动节的行动快乐人不对我们的，数个人不结果都，许多行动你看看了，你们有一个人不结果都，把人不经营忙不苦的，是新这个新的带的人新的多的，那当今的人呢，人给人带的人新的当然新，要新的带的人新的多的。
So there are many different examples by way of this idea can be illustrated. So the different types of examples, they just exemplify this idea. But in the same way as the tree naturally looks after itself, at the same time it also needs the assistance of other factors. So for instance, it needs the assistance of water. The water and tree are different entities, so they're not the same. Likewise, there's the warmth of the sun. So the tree needs help from the sun. In that way, the tree needs help from other factors. It's not just that the tree looks after itself, but it also depends on other factors to be able to look after itself. So in that sense, likewise here, although we naturally look after ourselves, we also naturally need the assistance of others. We need the help of others.
사월도 다 와서 미디 찍을 찍된 거에 지금 신고를 되게 자대요. 근데 정말 제 지식 중에도 아니 이게 신이 소셜 아니면서
So in particular, as human beings, we need to depend on one another. We depend on each other. So His Holiness usually describes this in English. So Geshe-la says he doesn't know the Tibetan word for that, but His Holiness usually says social animals. We are social animals.
그래서 또 찍다 찍대니 초과에도 찍다 찍된 거에 대해 정신 딘지지 인바이나 딘지지 인기라 다 신다라고 맞제바이나 다 신다라고 제고에지 다 신다라고 제니 가지고 편지 여바이나 로고 제고에디 다 정신기 내단기 톤의 TV 다 랭겐도 차대다 그게 제부 가리 용다 죄기 기자다 납제 기자면 뭐지 정신기 내단기 톤의 TV 다 랭겐도 차대다.
So if it's the case that one is dependent on one another, if there's this interdependence between human beings, between beings in general, so that being the case, one has to help others. It is necessary, it is essential, or it is one needs. It's necessary to help others because this is the natural state of phenomena. This is how it is in actuality, from the point of view of nature. Here we're not talking about from the point of view of the result one experiences. We're not talking about it from the point of view of dharma or some kind of advice that someone gives oneself. No, this is just the natural state of being of things. Natural reaction from the point of view of nature itself, that one helps one another.
정말 뭐지 갑자기 뒤숨어서 알았어. 무슨 춘춘가 다시 해야 되네. 니 처래. 다 담아 있는 게 뭐차 내나서 나 근데 집에 가나 야신 때문에 그래. 디지털 다 대통령 예비 다 요신신 다 칼라 담아 인가 다 신도 다 담아 대 내가 다 파를 뭐지 뒤지레스. 다 충중 갔다 다 김고치 뭐 차디 다 추로 내기 뒤지레. 다 단디 버자다디 다 파로 같이 얘기 뒤지도 전에 출내 거에디 다다데 뭐번에데 다다 파마 제가 있나 딱 괜찮지 차로 다디야 신 내다기다 신기 찬이 제가 있는 뭐 여버지 차로라.
So now, with respect to a specific time, and Holiness usually talks about it with regard to a specific time. So when we talk about being children, being young, as young children, we depend on the assistance, we depend on the help of others. And then again, when we're old, when we've reached old age, again, we depend on the assistance, on the help of others. And then there's that time in between. That time in between when we're young adults, when we're middle-aged. So during those years, that's when we need to take responsibility to help others. So this is just the way it should be. This is just the nature of things, in the sense that when we're very young or when we're very old, this is the time to accept help from others. This is the time when we should be able to accept the help or the assistance by others. And then in the meantime, in the time in between, this is naturally the time when we should help others, those who need help.
그러나 그 시다들 세나 따대 마도 로봇 지금도 마제디 전에 다 경상만 하기도 다 마이디나 로봇 지기도 다 참자나 강에 되게 참자나 뭐지 겹투고도 로봇이 다 무슨 상황 어디 저거로 강에 치료네 지 중앙이 내가 나는 가까이 뭐지 돼 어디 전에 지까지 지기제로 로봇 제나 편도 유효지 마제네 제나 강에 뒤 참만 돼야 되도
So Gela
이 참만서 하다 그거래 이 나머지 추다 제정에 저지에 도요 마이든 뜻이 저 제정에 좀 차이도
So Gela saw a documentary about Africa, like with wild animals in Africa, that walks around with the zebras. And when there's some danger, when there's any kind of danger coming along, the ox does just remain there. It doesn't help the other animals that face danger. And then basically they also experience a disadvantage in the sense that they also get attacked. Whereas on the other hand, there are these other beings, these kind of bulls, kind of bull-like beings here. They would help the other animals. They would go into defense, or they would help the other animals. So in that sense, they benefit themselves as well as the other animals. And this is also true for human beings. That when we help one another, then we create like a strong front, and we're able to avert harm sometimes. Whereas on the other hand, if we just stand idly and we don't help others, then we also may harm ourselves in that way. So we can say therefore that this bull should basically take advice from, the ox should take advice from the bull. So the ox should take advice from the bull in the sense of how it behaves with regard to danger.
다 갈라버려 남고디 뭐 일이 꾸고 좀 차더라 지기지로 뭐 마시디 뭐 일이 잡아 좀 차더라 다 먼저 지기지로 뭐 마시나 아야 뭐 일이 꾸고 좀 차더라.
So it seems that the ox is more stupid, that the mai is more intelligent, and the ox is more stupid in the sense that it doesn't help. So if we don't help others, then the ox is more stupid than the bull. So it seems that if we don't help others, we become more stupid than the bull.
저기 더 수수 땅에 다시 이제 가버리면 다시 지들 내가제다 미참마를 신적으로 와서 전선데 되는 있으면은 그래서는 더 지수면 자하기 내시 돼서 버스 동지 세가 땅 동지 버스 동지 말이 추생마 타봐 다 예를 미유를 정하다 보여 아마 동네였는데 로고징이 피니메 추생마 이제라 미치기 아니 police fondaje ne police de shine mengal ti chi da boda je 정도 제가 수수 키니 긴키 차선 제모토네 police fondaje 지도 로버지도 제와라 등지도 就是第一嘛，现在得给来的，先好这个这是如果接的，长期去的话是嘛，经验有是的，这我都能带清楚知道你呢，你才有事了。
So, leaving aside giving up oneself to benefit others, some may say that it's actually natural for us to help one another, even though we don't give up ourselves, but still we don't give up our own interests, but it's natural for us to help others. But Geshe-la says that's not necessarily the case, because there are situations where that just doesn't happen. For instance, about a month ago, there was an Indian man who was injured by a bus. He was hit by a bus. And he lay injured on the road for 5 hours. No one paid attention to him. And then after 5 hours, finally someone called the police. And then he was taken to hospital where he passed away because help had come too late. So here, actually, if we say we want to help others, the least we could do is, upon seeing someone in distress, to at least call the police, to at least call someone who can help. So just a little help, if we can offer that. And sometimes, even though we feel we will all help, we will all give some help to others, sometimes if there's not enough kind-heartedness, if there's not enough care, if the caring attitude is not strong enough, it may be the case that someone requires help and there's no one around to help this person. Are there any other questions? More questions? So, if there are no more questions, then with regard to regarding self and others, so seeing one as equally, seeing someone as more precious than the other, and understanding that we're actually equally precious with regard to oneself and others, that there's an equal sense of preciousness, well, that should suffice. The explanation Geshe-la has given so far should suffice. So, if one considers the fact that one's happiness, all one's happiness comes from others, to reflect upon that, that would be another means to regard other sentient beings as precious, as more precious, understanding that happiness only comes through others. And one needs to reflect upon how one gets happy, how one's happiness depends on others. So many of us will probably think, oh, that's easy to understand. So everyone can understand how one's happiness comes from others. But sometimes there's the fault of it being too easy to understand. So as His Holiness says, that sometimes if something is very difficult, one considers this to be some kind of challenge. One wants to understand it. One really gives it some thoughts. One really reflects upon this intensely. Whereas in the case of something that is easy to understand, one just feels, one doesn't think about it because it's easy. And then there's no special feeling, there's no special emotion that arises in one's continuum as a result of having reflected and contemplated on this in some detail. So even though it is easy, but Geshe-la says he still wants to say something about it, because that may become a condition for thinking about this deeper, reflecting upon this deeper.
먼저 저거에 맞아는데 지절인 데요. 다 여기 몰라가지고 저체 가리사사 가리 뉴뉴 바다베도 다 총망만 보지. 다 총안 되게 되면 있나? 아니 가 뉴에래 아마 더 다시 그니 책도 총안 주에 되게 말아 팽기도.
So, for instance, Geshe-la says he's living at Sechuling. He's living at Sechuling, and when he needs something, Geshe-la will go up to Miklauganj. In Miklauganj, there's so many different shops. There's so many things that are being sold, so many options available to him. But if there were no stores, if in Miklauganj you didn't have that vast variety of different stores, Geshe-la would have to go to Lower Dharamsala, and that would be a problem. That would make it more difficult. So if these shops weren't there, if they didn't have this possibility, it would be more difficult because you would have to go to Dharamsala.
아니 대는 신치기 야 디발 대행이 뭐 되게 되다 치료는 배경 군전이 되게 되면 마치 위치도 딱 맞다 바탕에 있으려네 소마 되게 조금 알아 저 되게 돼 제가 말을 듣는데라고 용해디 치료는 투리스 용해를 다 맞이 치료는 배경에 디발 규도 되게 처음에 때네 신에 말 이따되고 용거다.
So therefore, so the fact that there are stores, if Geshe-la were totally on his own here, there wouldn't be that many shops. There wouldn't be so many stores and shops. But it is because of others. It is due to the many tourists who come to Miklauganj. It's due to the residents, many of the residents. So living here, it's due to them that there are so many shops, so many stores that you can choose from and that you can utilize.
다시를 좋아이나 아니 그게 집 되게 되면이나 택시나 저는 좀 이제 있는데 다 집이 여행자 아니 그 좋아하는 이슈잖아 이제 좋다 디지털이 거든요 야 집 당연히 나와이나 야 집나 저는 로봇이네나 마치고 저나 그 이제 내 땡겨요 그래서 다 나도 저는 로봇에서 참아기다 디디 때문에 아니 신경 갖고 인지기 거의 내 뒤에 이런 거도
So then with regard to having to go to Lower Dharamsala, well, if the jeep wasn't there, if there wasn't a jeep, if there were no jeep, that would be difficult because the taxi costs about 200 rupees, so that would be much more expensive. That would be much more expensive to pay for the taxi. So if Geshe-la takes the jeep, he pays maybe 15 or 20 rupees. But then again, it's due to the kindness of the jeep driver, but also one needs other people, because if there were no other people who go with the jeep, then again one would have to pay 200 rupees. So it makes it cheaper being able to go by jeep, and paying less money is due to the kindness of others.
섬당나지단데 간을 처음에 줘서 좋지. 야 섬당당지 있다나 디지털에 팔을래야. 가진치 페이지대로 지니지 얘기했어요.
Right. So from one perspective, one may feel, oh, that doesn't make any sense to think along those lines, like to think about the other people who go in the jeep, etc. But from another perspective, it may lead one to generate the sense that others are kind. One becomes aware of the kindness of others through this reflection.
제자다 치료자마요 수부디나 제디 포만에 되는 중반에
So from one perspective, one's body depends comes from one's parents. There's some space inside. This was just saying, if you want to come inside, if you get wet outside, there's more space here. Can you try it?
세베 제디 퍼먼트 되는 중반에 디나신 디제라 아니 칼라 되는 중디고 다 칼라 되게 뒤에 신나 되는 중인디 다 뒤에 신나 되는 중 신의 신모지 신나 되는 중다 민디에 신나 되는 중 진짜 주식이 뒤 논제다 가리 위에 참 신나 되는 중디 샤다 차디고
So with respect to the substance, the kind of physical substance that makes up one's body, the root kind of substance, that comes from one's parents. And then in order for the body to grow, one eats fruit. And again, one depends on others for the food. So it's others that provide this food, and therefore others are also responsible for one's body. So in that way, everything one enjoys, everything one's wealth, one's enjoyments, everything comes from others. So one's body, one's enjoyment, everything one can utilize in this life arises independent on others. Oh, with education, sorry, I forgot that. So also, of course, education, one's understanding of the world, etc., all that comes from others.
차상 유에 되니지 미큐님의 세계 다 리동을 내도가이나 계좌 요마래 그 인데 대체 요마래 다 kaik게 누구한테 요마랬다.
Holiness usually says that if a person who has a lot of qualities and who's physically very healthy, if such a person were to go to a mountain, like an empty mountain where there's no one else, well, their fame would be of no use. Their qualities, his qualities would be of no use. His capacity would be of no use to anyone.
당장이 디지털지 시에나 된대요나 강의 대사들라 통중 계수 디체가 있는 미여가 있어. 군인가 나오지.
And so what his holiness says that if our happiness comes from others, then that which it depends on, the thing those people who are the happiness depends on, it doesn't make sense to deceive them and to bully them. It's not appropriate to do so.
레디 이는 그저 니치도 와나 페치도 제밖에 말아와. 그런 수수수수기 개변이 치도 제셔줘라. 제상 같이라 가부치고에 개미도 쓰러와. 니치도 제조 말했어. 이제 something else.
So some may think, well, that is true that they benefit me. However, they don't do it to benefit me. Others don't do this intentionally, but they do it in order to benefit themselves. So therefore, there's no reason for me to like them because they don't, or there's no reason for me to benefit them because their benefit is not intentional. So what to say then? What can we respond? How can we respond to this argument?
지난 먼저디 미기 내게다 다티바라 미기 섬신도 제가 많이 맞지 제마수로 수에도 같은데 제가 미들 롱랑 채워들 요래 이제 롱랑에 나미도 잘라도서래 잘라티면 뒤쪽에 잘라티 유에다 아니 이말도 지나는 게로지 제마디 디크레지 콘도사 제마디 봐 제비 요지 다한테 잘라데 디 치 뭐벌레 세메기 뭐벌레 롱랑에 용되기도 중세 가서 생각하는 내용도 스티로 디는 아니 그게 거의 수지 강전의 세메 뭐버디기 수수도 용으로 지나다니 내게죠 개말와 마이네 내비 중생기 엔코나 뭐가와 지지 디유나 아니 파저디 수술 팽비치도 그놈에네 팽바 인자 디 중생기 가부치 여버지 차기도.
So usually, with regard, in general, we say when someone harms us. So unless they've harmed us, they've harmed me intentionally. There's no reason to dislike this phenomenon with regard to harm. But nonetheless, sometimes inanimate objects, when they harm us, we get angry with them. We may throw something when we hurt ourselves on an inanimate object. So there's the story, for example, of a bhikkhu, of a fully ordained monk, who cut down a thorn tree because he pricked himself on that particular on its thorns. So there are all these stories of people basically hitting or trying to harm an inanimate object that they received harm from, even though there was no intention from the side of that object. Now, if that is permissible, if that is the case, well, then we could also turn it around. If inanimate objects benefit us, then we should like these objects. There should also be a sense of liking, if something, even not inanimate, if something benefits us without having the intention to benefit us, we should also like this phenomenon. So if something that doesn't have the intention to harm us, we feel resentful towards that. It would make sense to also like something with regard to objects that have no intention to benefit us.
Chama Yuda, Yundeda, Banjorda, Chama Shella Ten, Jungsha, Chata, Chago, de Ine, Susi Samu Tangdi, the Susan Kune Chidu, and then Pishitamati, some Tanda Matigo study. Yamashi, Chidan Shella Pengiro, Shingi Rana Pemba, she Rangi, Kuno Mene, Shella Pendro, in the Samu Tangdi, the Tangyo, Rang Chipura, some Tangje, the Sama Rang Kune Chidu Pishita.
So, in general, everything, our body, our possessions, our wealth, everything we possess, all this comes from others. But usually we think, I will only utilize this for myself. I will use it for myself. So usually this is our intention, which is actually not appropriate. Of course, naturally, even if we don't have the intention, whatever we do, it will to some degree benefit others. However, without thinking that may this benefit others, this is not the right kind of attitude. So we should not have that kind of attitude, or to only want to benefit ourselves.
Digi some tanda yuva ina, da rangi digi tangma yu longche sotan cheba tangma, and shin simjin the deni chungana, the chebabo one is simjin, make to a dingy. Chisa the chebabo killing it is chebabo ziguna, and it's Matsugi di simjin the deni chungwa, the habo michi, simjin the zigo service, something good. Then ni pinjachi. The husky, Maniturama, so Hoptical Mitilla. And once you conjure this singation, at the content of the ticket of the figure over, did not contain once you conjures in the Chevabo to the conjure Legora, that Momuchi. She's over the Digitoni conjure Tacharvaina, once you conjure the singulations. A reason, once you don't take is the Cheva. So
Gisela says, well, he doesn't know whether this explanation really works, but basically there are some people who consider a creator God, who believe in a creator God. And because this creator God has created us, we consider this creator to be very precious. We regard this creator very highly, like our parents. It's like someone who's given us life, so therefore we regard this creator as very precious. So likewise here, with regard to ourselves, our body, our possessions, our root virtue, etc., everything has come independence on others. So in that sense, we could say that the others are the creators, in a similar sense as the creator God. Others are the creators of everything good we experience in life. So this is something to consider, that that everything that we enjoy right now, it comes from others. It's due to sentient beings. And Geshe-la has a relative who he sometimes discusses things, like very loosely, they discuss things back and forth. And once he said very spontaneously to this relative, he said to him, our creator is sentient beings. Our kind of creator, God, is sentient beings, without explaining all the reasons for saying so. And his relative was like, oh, I don't know, that's true.
Mashita di shuchiru tandi takio chedan tenjungwa, chedan tenne shemu du zane kaje simje digi di zibur cheba ina, suji digi tamje tabeji. Wata simje digi la zibur ma cheba je, tongjun kesi cheba ina, susur kange teji. Lana ane chiwabu kunju tsiwa da hita charu da sim shinda.
And if one takes this to a even stronger, if one takes it to a kind of takes it on a stronger level or a larger level, if you like. So in relation to the Dharma, actually we should regard and respect all sentient beings because all our happiness comes from other sentient beings. So all the happiness that we experience in our life arises as a result of others. So if we really think about this, then we can actually consider others to be like a creator of happiness. We can regard them to be like a creator of all our well-being. So as a method to generating love and compassion for others, or like a caring attitude with regard to others, and also, so there are these two methods. One explanation Geshe-la gave was with respect to considering oneself and others as being equal, and also understanding that all our happiness comes from others. Can you think of other methods that enable us to generate more of a loving care towards others? Can you think of other methods that enable us to generate or cultivate more love and compassion towards others?
Maybe not other method, but other reason. It seems that whether my mother intended to bring me or just I could develop logically, some do, intention, attitude would say, they brought me, they should be responsible for me. I should think, I said maybe not another method, but another reason. I could logically, some people do develop the attitude saying that since my parents brought me, they should look after me and there should be grateful for them. If a person didn't mean to benefit me, why should I appreciate it? He didn't mean it. This is not intelligent. I'll be more happy if I am grateful for those who benefit me, whether they intended or not. So intention shouldn't be a factor here, because it's not wise, it's not intelligent to bring it as a factor. It makes me more happy just to be grateful for those who benefit me, whether they intended it or not.
가시실라다 가진 첨부 레 삼금마래 이네 이게 노트를 가르스나 가진 첨부 레 삼이야 다라 셈 기부도 차르스 가진 첨부 레 라야 디 김순도 치네 셈디 디부도 셈디 기부 차르자 수소라 캡사요 다트쇼레 수소 삼진도 같이 유나게 베나레 이 삼이야 아 주고지 레야 삼가다 위도 기와다
So you say basically that if you have gratitude, just that feeling of this person is kind, they're kind, so that feeling of gratitude, having that is more beneficial in terms of one feeling happy having that instead of not having it. That's what you're saying,
와 천자 시부서로 걸 가르디 디 총접신의 신유스는 리버스는 타는 기제 시시에 타는 수부 딜라미 수부라 하면 되죠. 안 수부다가는 비지 제제 아니 말아 가르쳐야지. 천자 시부터
So Yeshua says there was a situation that he witnessed himself of a child having no gratitude with regard to his parents. There was no sense of gratitude. So sometimes, in some cases, when parents are wealthy, they may sell their house and give the money to their children. But in this case, this child's family or this person's family was not wealthy. And so this person said, well, my parents didn't give me anything. What did they give me? I bought my own house, I own my own house, it's my house, I do my own business, so they didn't do anything to me. So Yeshua says, this is so strange to say that. This is very strange to say that. Because the fact that he has the ability, the capacity to engage in business is because of his parents. Just the mere fact he can talk, he can communicate. And then, of course, finally, or at the least, the body came from his parents, the body that he uses in order to make business. So he thought this was very strange to think that he didn't get anything from his parents. Is there anything else? Anyone else who would like to contribute?
Can we use the same logic also in
Microphone. Oh, yes, sorry.
I wonder about can you hear me?
Yes.
The logic that Leora just mentioned. When someone hurts us, should we not differentiate if it was intentionally done or not? Should we see it all as the same?
Kusina tanda samtana chipa chikan da aja kusaya di samtana chipa chikan chila pena meeting on no kyana ya samshin do ne da samji mai be do ne ya la ya khani do digi yoche go mo bai digi yoche go do esta da meeting samshin do ne kya da sra yang gansu no mai ba chela chikar sa ta chik du chele ko do ba mena ya ko so ne kya do ya digi yoche go mo
So
what is your question? So you're saying don't you have to differentiate? I ask exactly the way, like, don't you have to differentiate? So what is your question with regard to someone intentionally harming you and not intentionally harming you? So you're saying you should differentiate?
Yeah, I'm asking if in Leora's question, she says the intention actually is not so important.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if when someone hurts me, and he does it intentionally, or he doesn't do it intentionally, should my reaction be the same way?
Okay. Ko du chola samtan dera, ni ada di bisonera. Ta pagi tela kunung chinga soso phegi ra, bedo chegi kunung yena le mena le keba yo ma de kadin chimbo re sam.
제자 수준 팽기네
So thingi yo sta ko samjin do ma phena ya, ni ho kadin chimbo re sam da susula phendo yo. Ta du chola samtana ko samjin do ngala nena, samjin mai bachila nena, to chikwa re ma de chikwa.
오늘 디다 네버네 디로다. 이제 저 페마 벤디로. 섬로 가지 담아던 타 제가 시작이 타지도 디 오늘 대화도 말하다.
So basically you're saying it's just the harm or the benefit, that's it. It's got nothing to do with the kind of the motivation. The central idea is here that they have harmed me or they benefited me, right? That's what you're saying.
머신 것은 네 걔네 섬신의 뇌들을弄 마와 나에 도시 요요부터. 다들 가르치는 그강 체도니네. 제시들 때문에 섬신도 저는 말은 내 제를 직디 군내 저르면도 섬신도 내 말했어. 딜레고 와로. 다딜레야 리버지 디당이다. 다그 섬신도 내게 뒤에 가르치는 그 뇌의 군노지 키니. 뇌 말해. 이내 군노디에 만뇌 군노 깨고 되니 깨져 말했어. 그래야 리버지가 가는 저도야 지구지야.
So here, with regard to, usually we feel like a person who's intentionally harmed us, this person we get more angry with, as opposed to the person who doesn't do this, doesn't do so intentionally. So there's a sense, well, they've done so intentionally, they've done this on purpose. But there's a kind of reasoning we can apply in this situation. Because the person who has intentionally harmed us, they had a motivation to do so. But they didn't have the motivation to have the motivation. They didn't have the intention to have the intention. They didn't have the motivation to have that intention. So then, in a sense again, they didn't do this intentionally. Because they didn't have the intention or they didn't have the motivation to actually harm us. To have the motivation to harm us. Closer to your mouth.
So where is the responsibility of the person who takes this action?
So Geshe-la says in response to this that this person actually cannot be held responsible for their actions. Geshe-la said, well, actually we should not, this explanation he gave is in order for us not to get angry. There's no necessity, there's no purpose to get angry. But we would still discipline this person, we would still punish them, we would still discipline them, because that may help this person to adjust their behavior, to adjust their activities or their actions. And likewise, it would benefit others. Upon being aware of this person being disciplined for a negative action, that would also help others to also act more responsibly. So in that sense, it's beneficial to adjust one's negative behavior. It's beneficial from the point of view of adjusting one's negative behavior. However, one should not be angry. There's no reason to get angry.
다 팀다에디 딘지문에 이나 다 원에 제나 다 팀다에디 미디 규지 다에기 치도 인디잖아 다 정하나 로라 전인지로 좀 제거해디 원에 제나 다좀 디팅기 내가 진행도 긴 치셔디 디차도 알아 마제마제 나로를 다 두고다 미부스도 주 로주 주진 마트에오데 미 강내제 두고 차도나 디에니 예바다미 그거 줘
So in particular with regard to punishing someone legally, so imprisoning them, etc., actually all the responsibility lies with those who engage in legally punishing someone, disciplining someone. So the responsibility to teach them how to be more loving, to be more kind. Because if on the other hand, as a way of disciplining them, one puts them in prison for 10 or 15 years and they experience a lot of problems, they're being bullied, etc., then the positive result of that punishment is even worse. So instead of learning something, they actually come out being a worse person. So the responsibility really lies with those of the legal system to teach those people love and compassion. Closer.
이게 저런데 괜찮지만 같이 열에 생기도 그시 심신 된저 나처럼이 정상한테 느끼어다 나처럼이 그래 전주제보다 야호 맞춰봤다 아니 굴렁 매바 대처 컨셉이 컨셉이 네모 예비 원기です아니 컨셉 라신 눈에 지냈대 내 말했어 컨셉 생기 라신 선다티 간 상기기 라시데스 컨셉 눈에 지내 컨셉 라신이나 컨셉 가져라 집어 한 사람만 보여res 이나 컨셉 닌자 컨셉이 그래 네모기 레벨 원기 가져라티 네바 담바마도 그시 오늘 근데 컨셉 라신이나 컨셉 집어 빼 친구여res
제가 친구였어요.
네, 나처럼 닌지 단체가
저래.
sometimes 참치 나처럼 된대요. 컨트롤 신때 되레스. 컨트롤이 그래. 니모기 레바마도 된대래 또 말하지.
So, Inzin Marta is saying, sorry, I don't hear your version. So, Venerable, she's saying that with regard to actually another way to think about it, when others harm us, when others harm us, actually, whether they have the motivation or not, the point is that they're under the control of afflictions. So it's the afflictions that are responsible for their harmful actions, and these afflictions are not in the nature of their mind. They're merely adventitious. They're merely temporarily contaminating the mind, but it's not in the nature of their mind. If the nature of their mind were to manifest, well then actually they would engage in great activities. They would not engage in harmful activities. So that is, she suggests another way to think about this is to think that it's not in the nature of sentient beings' awareness to be harmful, to engage in harmful actions.
당신 독자 말에 세디 유토네 마가와제 다시부지 까토서와 이섬을 추치고 가와이나.
So from the point of view of not being being really in the nature of being bad, that is definitely a powerful way of averting someone's harm. Or to think about it according to that understanding that they're not naturally bad.
유모모도 마소나 말제와 친구 시비 요레스라시 티 나토서.
But saying that if one is not under the control of love, or not under the control of afflictions, that they're very loving towards us, can we actually say that?
제가 지다다다디 지도와 가시기 드네스 셰바이랑 신디 추는 신체 추디에 탈라다 되체는 조금 차줘야지 오마다 되지다다 잡아디다 되지 자차줘야지 더그 gen기 원기다 야로에 줘야지 두로에 줘야지 그러나 신디 야보래 장마래 쪼바래 다나 기제 배워지 나도 되지 기회버지.
So there's one explanation with regard to one's consciousness. So some people say that that the mind, that one's awareness is like water. If you put mud in the water, if you put dust and mud in the water water becomes dirty. Whereas if you add milk and tea, etc. to it, like tea leaves to it, then it becomes something delicious, something positive. So likewise, our mind is not really good or bad in and of itself, but rather depending on the conditions that you apply, it can become a positive or a negative kind of mind. So some give that particular explanation with regard to one's awareness, of the nature of one's awareness.
다 리치기 다기 나가다시 심코를 신디 야도 가야만 이미게지만 신디 야보레스 다데 코를 나야 되자버다 그 제와게 디심 코를 신도 요래 다 계기가 인자마게 것도 계기면은 계속해야지.
And then some, as she also just explained, some would say that the nature of the mind is something positive, that the nature of the mind is something good, and that it's in the nature of love, etc., and that our mind is merely obstructed, and therefore this goodness of the mind cannot manifest. So there's some will explain that.
다 셰라야 제와디 다 공부도 테스트 당제 테스트 개비 참네 다 디더 젤리 제와디 시더셔리 도네 아니 정지 선도다야들라 장바지 닝지지 아니 가와지 당용신 성당의 시수로 체내 시수가 다들
So with regard to increasing the love or the caring attitude or our caring attitude with regards to others, so in connection to that, we speak about 4 kind of limitless kind of attitudes. So tsimishi, the 4 immeasurables, so the 4 immeasurable attitudes of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. The 4 immeasurables or 4 measurable qualities.
다 디르레레 양 시시체 어디지도 전에 이내 시버디 최단 제주 다 변나 가지르스나 심제데 동에다 전나 아니 지마로 시디다 동에 제나 가지 야보요레스 이제 아니 잘로 줄직스는 뭐남지 아니 잘와디 얘기 지어고서 나섬지 다 딘디 제투버디 아니 kunjogi jingi labra jis la shibadi cheda tendo cheda ma jenda ta sumcha ta janda chi maru jalor gyurchi jalor dagi jamu se samta da sumcha
Shimiru said the gyurchi said the director so ninje chera
jalor gyurchi le di malo
malache Shimiru said
chi maru se di ta karu ta janda yabu to se di kawa kawa ta
So all of those four, each of these 4, so love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, they can be again further, each of them subdivided into 4. So with regard to the first one, if all sentient beings would have happiness, it's necessary for all sentient beings to have happiness or have to be happy. And the second would be for all sentient beings, may they have happiness. So may all sentient beings have happiness. That would be like a prayer. That would be prayer, an awareness that engages in prayer. And then may all sentient beings, all sentient beings having happiness, I myself will bring this about. This is the altruistic, the special altruistic attitude. And then with regard to all sentient beings have happiness, may the 3 jewels bring this about. So this is the last kind of awareness. So these 4 therefore, with regard to the first, love, wishing for them to be happy, it is appropriate that they're happy, may they be happy, I myself bring forth this happiness, and lastly, may the 3 jewels take them to this happy state. Maybe also the first one could be like, how wonderful it would be so great if they were happy. Right? And then the second, may they be happy. And then the third, I myself will bring this about. And the third, may the 3 jewels help them to bring this about.
다 잡발레이나 대화도 되는 지마로 소한테는 시작을 대화도 되는 지마로 대화를 주지 대화 다기 자오스.
So previously, sorry, I got it the other way around. I said with regard to suffering. So now you can apply the same with regard to compassion. So previously I translated like love. May all sentient beings be happy. So again, I actually said it the other way around. May all sentient beings be free from suffering. But in the same way, if you now apply it to compassion, if you apply it to love, so the same thought. May all sentient beings be free from suffering. It would be wonderful if they were free from suffering. May they be free from suffering. I myself will bring this about, and may the three jewels assist sentient beings in that. So you can apply this to the other three states that are part of the four measurables. So now with regard to joy, it would be the thought that it's wonderful that sentient beings do have happiness. So it's wonderful that they are not separate from happiness. So it's wonderful that sentient beings do have this. So in the same way, so it's wonderful that sentient beings are not separated from happiness. May they not be separated from happiness, and then so forth, the other four stages. And then with regard to equanimity, may they be impartial towards sentient beings, have a sense of equanimity or feel impartial towards all sentient beings. It would be wonderful if they felt impartial towards sentient beings. May they feel impartial towards all sentient beings. I myself make sure that they will be impartial towards all sentient beings. And lastly, may the three jewels help them that they be impartial with regard to all sentient beings, or with regard to sentient beings.
제자다 인기계다 아니 가자다 몰라봤듯이 초진의 심진디 아니 제비로게 제제 초진의 고통에 나 추디 야보지 통과이나 워처바이나 아니 신의 동네를 찾아 집 가서 제로 제당세 심비대 두고 알아 다 제비 생기에 다시디 가서 나차오지 다 동네 나 추디 삼고 다 13호지.
So therefore, in order for us to generate compassion, one aspect one needs to take into consideration is the fact that we have to cherish, that there is a need to cherish sentient beings. So understanding the need for cherishing sentient beings. And secondly, what one needs to understand is the different types of suffering that sentient beings experience. In dependence on that, in dependence on cherishing others, and in dependence on understanding all the different suffering, the different types of problems that they experience, then compassion can arise. So the need for cherishing sentient beings, Geshe-la already explained. So then the next aspect to reflect upon, to contemplate, are the different types of suffering sentient beings experience. So with regard to suffering, well, one of course should understand suffering on the basis of oneself, on the basis of one's own personal problems and difficulties. But in order to really understand it, one should also go to places where people or try to encounter or become witness of people experiencing sufferings, to become more aware of their sufferings, or look at photographs, watch documentaries about other sufferings, and so forth. So in that sense, to get a better understanding of the different types of problems others experience.
And they chungi chela that are kuchik saying that any kajeta chabada ninja injimiji something simple eye that kadu did doing those some chabada chabache is confusion to you that make the child toy child did you child say that they were the chima you go to the chima 대벌 규칙, 대벌 규칙, 다 디차로. 다 대벌 다기 자오시디, 다 기시디를 수수이 다시 제외다. 다 거기 내가 치고야 아도, 야, 거기 셔지 치고야 아도. 다 디메다 디레도도 채워야돼요. 거기 제외가요다. 수수비를 제거 아도 지리다 대벌 다기 자오. 다 기시디를 제거 투여지네. 다요 거기 매비建议刚刚贴的就刚刚写的群还是突突起的是写的但是有个的你写对是结果是你写出去我的那这点钱呢吧工作了经济了都是写的然后一米几工作家讲的讲不来的工作开门那个钱但是那的这话的建议但其他是这个的截图个的节目对的上的如果情绪的菜的수수 비샤메 콜라 샤지진 핑기유 하고 거의 교보지 수수의 교보이다 진짜 제예요. 로봇이르지 콜라 로봇이르지 된다 뒤에다 로봇하게 신나 수기 로봇 제품이 디솔이야 아니 로봇 제지 기본이 디자로
So now, with regard to the different kind of problems, so when we encounter, for instance, a person who's blind, upon first encountering this person, one may have this reaction of thinking, oh, the poor thing, the poor thing, oh, they're blind. But this is just a very coarse reaction, a very coarse reaction of compassion with regard to their suffering, and that is not sufficient. It is important to really get a sense of their problems, of the difficulty of the person who experiences blindness, who cannot see. So as explained earlier on, before Gisela gave the explanation of going into a detailed reflection upon all the different problems, all the different obstacles they face as a result of not being able to see. To think of the fact, or to contemplate, how do they live their life? How do they make a living? How do they go back and forth? How are they able to move back and forth? And to also think, being blind is like being locked into a dark room. Being locked into a dark room. Think what it's like to be in a dark room for maybe 2 or 3 days, not being able to see anything. So in that one's where one gets a really good sense of the suffering that they go through. One gets a real understanding of the incredible difficulty of the difficult situation that they're in right now. And then naturally the thought may arise of thinking how wonderful it would be if they would be free from that problem. So that is the first of the 4 with regard to compassion. How wonderful it would be if they were free from that particular suffering. And then from there, then there's the thought, may they be free from that particular suffering. Now, it is not necessary that one keeps just with reflecting upon compassion in that sense without taking love into consideration. It's possible to mix the two in the sense that when there's a thought, I wish they would not be blind, there may also be the thought, it would be wonderful if they could see. So that would be wishing for happiness, wishing them to be happy, and that would therefore qualify for being called love. Or may they be happy, or so it would be wonderful that they would be able to see, or would be happy and have the happiness of being able to see, and may they be happy, may they have the happiness of being able to see. And so in that sense one can mix those two, or one doesn't need to just focus on love or just compassion. And then from that, then arises the thought, I myself will do something, I myself will help them not to be, or to overcome this blindness. So to try different methods, such as taking them to a hospital, helping them to have surgery, and if one is really courageous, maybe even donate one's own eye. So to make a donation of one's own eye, give it to that blind person. So in that way, one generates some kind of determination or enthusiasm or strength of mind to help that particular person. And then with regard to the fourth thought, the 4 of those the 4 aspects with regard to compassion, then may the 3 jewels bless that person. But it doesn't have to be the 3 jewels. It doesn't have to be the thought, may the 3 jewels help this person, but one may look for other help. One may look for other help for someone else who's also able to assist this person in order for them to overcome their blindness. So for instance, if the person requires surgery, but the surgery is really expensive, and the blind person doesn't have the money, we ourselves don't have the money, we may look for a sponsor. So we may look for the assistance of a sponsor. So that could be, may the sponsor, may this other person help them. So in that way, one goes through those four aspects. Wouldn't it be wonderful? May they be free from it? I myself will do something, and may there be others who can assist me, and then one seeks help from others, whether the 3 jewels or someone else.
아니 무슨 수비가 때문에 같이 지게 되와 자할래 이게 시차에 엑스텐드 제바이나 미미디어 그래서 때문에 이 뒤에도 다 그런 동구가 말을 봐도 편도 쉬고도 같이 얘기 좀 보지요 이些친구 계셔 콜라와디 친구한테 지금 미치 친구라도 미디기 미숨소 잡시 친구에게 지금 개만 제다 지금 개만지 지금 다 되다 그런 다 시작 통고 말을 보듯이 마신이 거쳐서 삼주해드리라다.
So, if one is not able to donate one's eye while one is alive, one's eye is while one is alive, well, one can do so after one has died. So, Krishna says this exists in the West and also in India probably, that people make a will, saying that their organs, their eyes, etc. should be used upon their death. Of course, one will not be able to witness the benefit of one's donation to another person, but this is still very, very beneficial. So, an acquaintance of Geshe-la, a friend of Geshe-la, another Geshe, he needed a liver transplant, and he received his liver transplant from a person who had passed away and who left a will to donate his organs. And this person had given away his liver and his left and right kidneys. So to donate to other people, and this particular Geshe received the liver from the person who donated his liver. So this would be something else one could do. Although one is unable to witness the benefit directly, nonetheless one will be able to benefit others in a great way.
지단 밑에서 중요한 옛날 주디 통 뭐고 통 옛날 왔더니 뭐고 통 퇴지는 무슨 도해지 용되거로 이제 제가 일단 인지 공도 있다 동행나 주 삼고디 디 무슨 도르메스 디 삼고 거시로다.
So in general, those who are a little timid upon witnessing other problems, upon hearing from other problems, they may feel claustrophobic, they may feel upset, they may feel unhappy upon hearing about the suffering of others. So Krishna is asking, do you think one will feel unhappy, one will feel depressed about witnessing other suffering or reflecting upon a lot of suffering?
이모티 체리조도 나도 지시해서 군주에다는 계속 개탄받는 다시 차선 차이 이제도 이제 말이지 이내 다시 제 맹강나다 나스타 암지 이제 유격기 이래로 왔다 자라기 이제 디지 등이 두서 뭐지 부수도 다디 통로 강에 뭐 통지도 부수도 세마기 차이로서 되게들 인지 검단다셔도 세마기를 받아줘 그 계좌 힘으로 왔다 인지 디게 되는 세상 있다고 대인의 인지 매비 깎기 등에 통데 디 부수도 해지다 인지 검사되잖아요 등에나 수도 통데 부수도 해야지 도르고 좋아지 라주고.
So before there was Geshe-la attended one of the meetings with scientists, and one of the scientists gave an explanation of some kind of experiment that they've been doing. This experiment has not been finalized yet. They still need to do further research on this, but the experiment was with respect to nurses and doctors who work in the emergency department of a hospital. So in the case of very urgent kind of cases, seeing a lot of great suffering. And so usually they experience a lot of stress, the doctors and nurses in those departments in the EU of a hospital. They're said to be exposed to a lot of stress and experience a lot of unhappiness, etc., and mental problems due to the stress that they're exposed. But curiously, they did this experiment. Geshe-la says that they taught them how to meditate on compassion, and that got rid of their mental problems, their psychological difficulty due to or on account of witnessing the different types of suffering. So Geshe-la says this is very interesting. Actually, they should have compassion naturally in response to seeing all their suffering. But here, by being taught meditations on compassion, they were actually able to overcome their difficulties that were a result of witnessing all these problems.
디제 디자네 직전은 디디 근데 담보 디제 거야디 따디 마제나 말레가 비셔그래 디 마제나 마베샤라 말해 레디타 진대 매바 직라 아니 따디 마제라 제트 차르디 다 부수도에 네메 차로라 다 닝지 검샤디 디 마케지 시케제 매바지 코쪽 세섬도 레오도 자네 디디기 아니 부수도에 추로셔야 돼 디디 기켜버 인시.
So maybe one reason for the effectiveness of this particular meditation was that initially there was a sense that these nurses, these doctors in this particular unit, the emergency or department or unit, that they had to do this because otherwise they would lose their jobs. They had to treat these urgent cases, otherwise they would lose their jobs, they would not make money. So basically they didn't really have the wish to witness these grave injuries, but rather had to do so. But then, so they were quite unhappy. It made them unhappy. It made them kind of claustrophobic. However, then upon meditating on compassion, the focus was taken away from themselves, and there was rather now the wish to benefit others, to protect others. And that attitude then help them to overcome that kind of mental claustrophobic attitude, or that upsetness with the situation. So it helped them to focus on the other person. So even though it's the same work that they do before the experiment and afterwards, but the motivation now is different.
스쿨로 디수지 비셔 치도레디 되는 미모를 팽거 같다. 그러 팬도 요인자 팬비 쇼라 수지기 셈비 팬좀 간다 샤기다. 말을 비셔 연구도 지고 많이 거지. 다 대긴 출나로 뭐라든지 총아디 같다 쉬죠. 뭐지 말을 팬도 중수 나와듯이 총아다 보고라기 당연히 총아디 주제 미도서 다시를 줘먹어지. 다시를 줘보는 갈래 가려다. 줘먹어지 된 요초저지 미모보다 앞에 기부 연구도 서로 디키니 제자와이나 정인제님 내레종에 수수심 구야구인데게 그와 차선레주도.
So now here with regard to one's mental attitude, it's a matter of attitude here in this sense. So having the motivation to benefit others or not having it. So in the case of having the motivation to benefit others, even if one has a shop, for instance, one runs a business, one has a store, and the motivation, of course, there is to make money, to earn money. However, one is able to benefit others by having a store, by running a business, by selling things to other people, one is able to benefit them. So instead of only reflecting upon the fact that one makes money, so the only motivation being that one makes money, one should also take to mind the fact one is able to benefit others, make that also one's motivation, the wish to benefit others by having this job. So this is similar to what Gishina said before. Previously he was thinking about how it's beneficial for himself, that there are these different stores, these different shops in the Cloudland that enabled him to get the things he needs without having to go to Dharamsala. So here in this case, the shopkeepers themselves should think, me making these goods available to others, in that way may I be able to help others so they can get everything they need and they don't have to go to Lower Dharamsala to do their shopping there. So to have that kind of motivation while they engage in selling their goods. And in that way the mind becomes much faster, the mind becomes much more open and much vaster, much more relaxed.
그래서 다디지 레벨 리리페 채널로 뒤에 가르마다 수수지대 레벨 현다 파시는데 수수 부구지 기체와이네 부구디 수부대 다야 보세 신야 보테 세버서 보세 진진가 납시 디디 중과이나 마오바나 부구디 몽불라야 편도 제도 그래서 그런 디키니 제와이나 제에도 부구 수용 제 직거래디 다가로 점리지를 셔대에 차주고래 아니 점지 제바 차주도 다가로.
So the same is true for all other types of work, or for any other type of work that one engages in. For example, raising a child. If one raises a child, so one raises the child in order to help this being to become a responsible person, to have a good education, to become kind-hearted, and so forth. So with this in mind, one raises a child who potentially can help a lot of other people in the future. So with this in mind, this should be one's motivation. So raising a child is the same, whether one has the motivation or has that kind of motivation or not. Raising a child is the same, but one makes that activity something very virtuous, in the sense that one wishes that raising the child will be of benefit to others. So it's governed, it's controlled by love and compassion. And one accumulates a lot of virtue in that way, raising a child.
다 저번에 인지 되고지 가오고 메디나 대기디나 대화적으로 가사 전반적으로나 대외 펑딩이지라 대화 된지지 아니 중반이나 아니 야보요레스 중을 지마로 스티지에 들어와 다 가와디 대화 탑 상해지라면 다 된지 코 된지 기부 중심 야부 중심 센터 가오고 다 진지이자 대답 그죠 모티디 내가 주지스 미저로 주지스에디 무슨이도
Now, this completing love and compassion as part of the four immeasurables, then there's joy. So with regard to joy, again, one focuses on the happiness of another person. But as earlier with regard to love, love is the type of mind when a person lacks a certain type of happiness. Well, in that moment, one wishes, one thinks how wonderful it would be if that person had happiness. May they have happiness. I myself bring about happiness. So this is with regard to love. Now here, with regard to joy, is basically assuming that the person has some type of happiness. So one wishes for them, one rejoices in their happiness, and wishes for them not to be separated from this happiness, and instead to experience this type of happiness continuously. So in other words, therefore, it would be wonderful if they may not be separated from this happiness. Or may they not be separated from it. I myself will bring this about, and so forth.
그게 다다 최년된 증인도 저기 야마티 사마당제 지수이랑세 디제다 다다 가오고 잡자고도.
So in that sense, from the point of view of practice of Dharma, a person practicing the 7 limbs, this practice here is similar to the practice of rejoicing as being part of the 7 limbs. It's similar to the practice of rejoicing in the welfare and the well-being of others.
어디 연합도 때 상당히 지어래. 어째서 이런 데 상당히 아니 아무도 기우시도.
So with regard to the 7 limbs, it's actually good to engage in the activity of rejoicing. It makes oneself really happy to rejoice. It's a very happy affair, a happy activity to rejoice in others' success, etc.
또 디레야 그 퀄리티와 디디 중샤 안티 야부 중샤 세드 슈치를 더해라 기시디 매바이나 그게 그렇지 디디에 요청서로 베는다 미 오무창 되게지나 기시 코미 매바이나 그거 타다 매바이나 코가에 어디체 제선다 다다 아니 디 차서 요인자 강에 디체 뭐지 다 야부 중샤 세지 슈치와 용시서로.
So when one engages in the practice of rejoicing, so when there's something positive that happens to another person, something good that happens to another person, one feels like, oh, this is wonderful that this happened to this person. But then one can extend this practice by reflecting upon how it would be if that person were to experience problems. So in the sense, like how terrible it would be if they didn't have what they have. Instead of only rejoicing, so one rejoices in what they have, let's say they're healthy, for instance, so they don't have any physical problems, to think how terrible it would be if any of their senses weren't working. How terrible it would be if this person didn't have legs, etc. So reflect upon how terrible it would be if they were to experience certain health problems, and then how wonderful that they don't experience them. So it's in that way one strengthens one's practice of rejoicing by reflecting on this.
인지 고메디 세벌 기부요에다 팽기리라는 귀네 모두 카두도 용서가 아유게 아유 가와 고메디기 된데 용서가 카두 거래 기부서서.
So when meditating on compassion, oneself feeling happy when meditating on compassion, that is indirectly the case. Indirectly, in an indirect fashion, one feels happy when one meditates on compassion. But by rejoicing, by feeling joy with regard to the welfare or the happiness of another person, there is a direct happiness that arises in the brain.
다 가와디 지수 일한다 지버레스 지버차디 요인장 남지 지수 일한데 차도 이부레스 디수고요 디는 다 가와고 메디 차도 이부차는
So when saying that this joy, as of the four immeasurables, the immeasurable of joy, equalizing rejoicing, so those two are the same, well, it is said that the activity or the practice of rejoicing is an antidote to jealousy, competitiveness. So in that way, of the four immeasurables, the immeasurable of joy becomes therefore an antidote to jealousy or competitiveness.
다 잡고 메디
Then with respect to meditating on love, love is described to be an antidote to anger. So then with regard to compassion, compassion is described to be an antidote to attachment or to desirous attachment. So Geshe-la says he's not really sure how compassion becomes an antidote to desirous attachment. But usually it's said that love is an antidote to anger, and then compassion is an antidote to attachment. So this is what it says in the Kangyo, or in the translated words of the Buddha, the translated speech of the Buddha.
Le pema chune zese ye jikto tsedi tata tebos dina la chena tabi teba chache ninji gi ene shidang che qasa de chache chabe gi shidang che di ka juna de ma chiba che chaju sem di timus de chache de timus di chaba ninji chaju sem gi su de li sungsha.
In one of the writings by Guru Rinpoche, by Pema Sambhava, in one of his writings he says that compassion is an antidote to desirous attachment. Love is an antidote to anger. So this is the same as described in the Kangyo or in the translations of the speech by the Buddha. But then he adds also bodhicitta. He says bodhicitta is an antidote to ignorance.
다들 닝지 밖에 잼된치는 공간이 되나? 다들 그 통제 다니 썰들 배치 슈칭거지는 공간이 되나? 동행의 수이다 되기도 좀 다른 뭐요나 디요의 치도 변하다 민민인지의 닝지 공간이나 아니 디 동행의 수사비 야고지 맞춰디 되게 그런 라이들어 수수디 수수 야고 철거하라 미디 철도 미도 세디 디 철의 치도 아니 이거 지니 되네 있었지. 아니 가만히 있을 때 말아. 내가 자산 지고 왔다. 저야 대야다 강에 대체네 체주. 다 되게 아니 힘이. 다 무슨 나 이거 진인데 되게 강에 유나. 다 무슨 미지지 되는데 제월에 나도 아니 그 시험이요 슈디게 되게. 어때래 나한테다.
그래.
어때 나그래. 아직 다 이렇게 줘야 되다. With
regard to compassion here, so the way someone who really makes a great effort, who exerts himself practicing compassion, so with regard to this person, they should really make an effort in understanding what it is like for others to suffer. So to put themselves in the other person's shoe, to really understand what they're going through, by reflecting upon all the different problems that this particular person may have. And if in the case of David's question, in connection to David's question earlier on, it being the case that oneself sees oneself as the center, and so it's very difficult therefore to understand others' suffering without experiencing them oneself, Geshe-la suggests to extend one's practice in the sense that one actually closes one's eyes, so to understand what it's like to be a blind person, to keep your eyes closed and engage in all the activities that you usually engage in, except that you cannot see. So do the same kind of activities, go here and there, and upon encountering problems, not to give up, but to continuously either blindfold yourself or keep your eyes closed, to get a real experience, a real understanding of the difficulties, of the problems of a person who's blind. And so then if you do this for 2 or 3 days, you get a sense the difficulties, the problems that I experience only over the course of 2 or 3 days, another person has to experience for their entire life. So one gets a real sense of the experience of this other person. So this kind of practice is described of adding some additional kind of increasing this practice even more by adding this additional kind of aspect to it.
In the Ninji body, the Ninji is in the every soon you will change. No more than a hour to do the there, come to see the word is not a key teacher, the motor.
So, but actually, if you want to engage in these additional practices of compassion in order to increase your compassion, you shouldn't cheat.